a market form which is more close to the real market situation. The real credit to explore such market form goes to E.H. Chamberlain and John Robinson. While John Robinson propounded the concept of imperfect competition, which included all market forms such as monopoly, duopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition. The focus of E.H. Chamberlain was restricted to the theory of monopolistic competition. And this monopolistic competition is actually one of the most popular form of imperfect competition. Monopolistic competition actually refers to a market structure where there are many sellers selling similar but differentiated product, and there is existence of free entry and free exit of the firms. In this situation, there is keen competition but not perfect one. The products are close but not perfect substitutes. Most of the consumer goods like toothpaste, brushes, soaps, detergents, textiles come under this category. Here, every firm is a monopolist of its own unique or differentiated product, but the products supplied by individual firms are close substitutes of each other. Let us discuss about the main features of monopolistic competition. The first one is many sellers. The number of firms under monopolistic competition is fairly large, but not in comparison to that under perfect competition. Here, every single firm is a small size firm controlling a small part of the total market. Each seller can take decisions more or less independently without worrying about the reactions of the other sellers. The possibility of collusion or secret understanding between the firm is ruled out here. Product differentiation is one of the most important features of monopolistic competition. Because of differentiated products, we often find particularly loyal customers persistently purchasing the same product of the same brand even at a higher price due to their strong preference. We often find people visiting the same physicians, same agent, same teacher year after year. The seller need not be afraid of losing much sales to the rivals when they actually reduce the price of their bonds, unless this price reduction is quite substantial. It is this product differentiation that creates brand loyalty, as a result of which the products are known by brand names or the trademarks. There will be competition between the rival brands of the products. Tata, Godrej, HMT, Hindustan Lever are certain brands which command a goodwill in the market. Product differentiation may involve qualitative material or workmanship differences in the products. Different toilet soaps with qualitative differences like Cami, which is milk based, Synthol, which is lime based, Rexona, which is coconut oil based, Nima Breeze, which is rose based, Pierce glycerin based, and Margot neem based. These are some good examples of real product differentiation. We must remember that mere attractive shape, size, style, color, or design, or even convenient location, free home delivery, free installation, after sale services, free gifts, including policies on return of the merchandise, can also create consumers' preferences and loyalties. The way of doing business, reputation for fair dealing, courtesy, efficiency, patronage, convenient shopping hours are some of the factors which make product different. A product is said to be differentiated so long as a base exists for preferring this product over the other. Such base for preference may be real or imaginary. In other words, product differentiation exists when the firm's product differs or is perceived to be different from those of the rival firms. That means if the buyer perceives the products of two different firms to be different, then these should be considered as different even if there is no qualitative difference in them. Product differentiation may involve unique selling proposition like Domino's Pizza competes with others on the basis of home delivery ability, with their fleet of delivery boys on scooters executing the order in less than half an hour. When such differentiation of the product exists, even if it is a slight or imaginary, buyers will be paired with sellers not in a random manner, but according to certain preferences. Sales promotion and selling cost. Advertisement and other selling expenses have an important role under monopolistic competition. Advertisement broadens the market and encourages the competition. Salesmen salaries, window displays, and different types of demonstration are some examples of selling expenses. The sellers can create and exploit irrational consumer preferences through subtle advertisement and salesmanship. Thus, we can say that advertisement plays an important role in creating imperfections in the market. Here we can make distinction between two types of advertisements. One may be classified as promotional advertisement and another as competitive advertisement. Promotional advertisement is used generally when a product is introduced for the first time. Such advertisement generally aim at informing the customers about the product, its uses and qualities. Such advertisements enable them in making more rational and better choice between the goods. All this facilitates market efficiency. Advertisement by tea companies during the pre-independence era in India was also undertaken to develop the taste for tea and to popularize its consumption. Informative advertisement by trade association expands the sales of all the firms because such advertisements attract customers toward the product of the group. Most of the advertisements today are competitive in nature. They aim at persuading and motivating the consumers towards particular brands of the product. By changing their taste and preferences, competitive advertisement is invariably manipulative that encourages and enhances the sales of one seller at the expense of other. Foreigners used to be the major player in the toothpaste market at one time. Foreigners used to be the major player in the toothpaste market at one time. The term close-up and Colgate altering consumers' preferences through excessive advertisement. Advertisement assumes greater importance, particularly when there is a product differentiation. Here, marketing or advertisement manager may render the function of convincing the consumers, who may be ignorant, even when products of two sellers are identical. Advertisement increases and intensifies the demand of the product. Thus, product differentiation that requires expenses on sales promotion, they are in turn are likely to produce product differentiation. Identical demand and cost curves. Demand and cost curves are assumed to be identical under monopolistic competition. Both product differentiation and sales promotion raises the demand of the product and make it more inelastic, creating opportunities for increasing profits. The greater is the product differentiation, more inelastic will be the firm's demand curve. However, the demand curve of a monopolistically competitive firm is more elastic, that is less steep, than the demand curve of monopoly firm. The reason is simple. Firm under monopolistic competition has close substitutes available in the market. while the product of the monopoly firm has no substitutes available in the market. Product differentiation also provides justification for selling cost, which shift the demand curve to the right, as a result of which not only the present buyers are induced to buy more, but it also attracts new buyers. Further, the nature of the cost curves under monopolistic competition is assumed to be the same as under traditional theory. Free entry and exit. Under monopolistic competition, there is freedom of entry and exit of the firms in the long run. New firms enter the group when the existing firm earns supernormal profits by differentiating their product. This will result in decrease in the demand for existing products, at least to some extent, and or an increase in the cost. Other features of perfect competition are common, like profit maximization goal, technology and prices of factor inputs are assumed to be given, and that demand and cost curves of all products are uniform throughout the group. Next subtopic is price and output determination under monopolistic competition. The equilibrium under monopolistic competition involves partial equilibrium or group equilibrium. In the former case, individual firm adjusts its own price or output independently to given situation of demand, while in the other case, market adjustment of all prices and output take place. Let us start with short-term equilibrium. Under perfect competition, demand curve as well as marginal revenue curve are downward sloping, as you can see through figure 15.1. There are three possible situations under monopolistic competition in the short period. Monopolistically competitive firm may earn profits when average cost curve is below the price. In this figure, per unit profit is given by price minus average or per unit cost, that is BQ minus CQ, which is BC. Equilibrium output is OQ or CD. So profit will be equal to per unit profit BC multiplied by the total units sold in equilibrium, that is CD. The total profit given by the product of per unit profit BC and total equilibrium output is given by the shaded area BCDP. In the second situation, there is a possibility of losses. Losses will be there when average cost curve is above the price line. Here loss per unit will be BC. Equilibrium output is CD or BP. So total losses will be given by area of the rectangle CBPD. In the third situation, price and per unit cost both are same because average cost curve passes through average revenue curve. So there is zero profit per unit. So total profit will be equal to zero. Or you can say there are only normal profits. So it is clear that in the short period the firm may earn profits or suffer losses or maybe in a situation of no profit, no loss. In the long period, on account of free entry and free exit, the firm gets only normal profits. There is the only one possibility. In case there are profits, new firm will be attracted to the industry or group. In case there are losses, some of the existing firm will leave the market. So ultimately, every firm will be getting normal profits on account of free entry and free exit. This situation has been depicted in figure 15.2, where price equals to per unit cost in the long period. So there is nil profit or loss per unit. So total profits will be equal to zero. So here total revenue and total cost are same or equal. So there is only normal profits in the long period. Next topic is economic efficiency and resource allocation. As we can see through figure 15.3, where we find that the firm is operating at the falling portion of long run average cost curve, and the point of operation is much before the point where per unit cost is minimum. That means there is excess capacity equals to ideal capacity and actual utilization. And this is equal to QQ1 as shown in figure 15.3. In this diagram, we find that since total revenue is equal to total cost, there is no profit, no loss. But there is unutilized capacity as shown in this figure. Some economists like Chamberlain feel that higher cost and price resulting from producing to the left of minimum long run average cost is socially acceptable so far as choices and hence satisfaction given by different products for which the people are prepared to pay high price. So here excess capacity is not wasteful. Empirical evidence. The process of globalization and competition across the world has made or is responsible for tremendous changes across the world. Hence, oligopoly form of market like monopolistic competition is also popular. In the case of monopolistic competition, there are many firms, while in the case of oligopoly form of market, the number of firms are relatively less. So there are adequate empirical evidences for monopolistic competition, but still the cases of oligopoly market are equally popular. Non-price competition. In order to maximize the profit, the firm indulges in price or non-price competition. In the case of former, there is price cutting, which may compel the other firms to also react in the same direction. Here, no firm is able to maximize market share because of cutthroat competition among the rival firms. Here, quality of product, location, publicity, free gift, free home delivery are used to attract the customers. The main aim of this expenditure on publicity and advertisement is to enhance sales so as to encourage customers to purchase a particular product or from a particular seller. Selling costs are different from production cost in the sense that the former are incurred to increase the demand of a particular product, while production costs meet the existing demand through increase in the supply. In other words, selling costs change the taste and habits of the customers so that the customers are attracted towards the product. On the other hand, through production cost, the good is in a position to meet the needs of the customers. Law of diminishing returns is applicable to the selling cost. When selling costs rise in the beginning, proportionate increase in the sales of the product exceeds the proportionate increase in the sales of the good. But after some point, proportionate increase in the sales falls short of proportionate rise in the selling cost. Thus, average selling cost curve is U-shaped. Figure 15.3 shows equilibrium with selling costs. Consequent upon the selling cost means whenever expenditure on advertisement etc. takes place, demand curve will shift to the right, resulting in rise in demand, price, and profits of the firm. The firm has to take decision in respect of price of the commodity and selling cost. Initial price has been shown by demand curve AR, while average selling cost has been shown through average production cost or APC curve. Here at equilibrium quantity OQ, MC is equal to MR. That means equilibrium condition is satisfied, which is not shown in the diagram. Here, profit is given by the shaded area ABCD. With increase in selling cost, new average cost becomes AC. That includes average cost of production also. So we can see in figure 15.4 that in the first situation there is only production cost depicted by U-shaped average production cost curve. In the second situation, advertisement takes place. So average cost will include average production cost as well as average selling cost. With further increase in advertisement cost, average cost will rise from AC1 to AC2, and hence the profits will keep on rising initially from small shaded area of rectangle shown as ABCD to EFGH, then to IJKL. So we should stop increasing the advertisement expenditure the moment we feel or find that increase in expenditure on advertisement is leading to reduction in the profits. That means wherever profits are maximum, we should choose that level of advertisement expenditure. So between or among three situations shown in figure 15.4, the last one where the profits are IJKL is most suitable. Evaluation of monopolistic competition. Chamberlain, who propounded the concept of monopolistic competition, was criticized by numerous economists who explained the waste of competition under the following heads. First is interdependence. The assumption by the firms that decisions are taken independently and possible reactions of the rivals are ignored has been criticized on the ground that products under monopolistic competition are close substitutes to one another. The very fact that firms resort to product differentiation implies that they are aware of the product market structure and possible reactions of their competitors. Actually, the assumption of product differentiation and independent actions by the rivals are inconsistent. Slave behavior. Chamberlain made an assumption that firms do not learn from their past experience. This slave behavior is not empirically verified. The firms actually fail to believe that their price revision decisions would provide similar reaction from the competitor. That means if one firm decides to lower down the price, such decisions are going to be retaliated by the rival firms. Even after experiencing the reaction, they do not change the mode of behavior. That means they continue to reduce their prices, which may even lead to further rise in their losses. Product differentiation and free entry. According to some critiques, the assumption of product differentiation is incompatible with the assumption of free entry. Actually, product differentiation prevents free entry of new firms. New firm will have to incur heavy expenditure on advertisement to make their product known and attract customers from already established firms. That means product differentiation and brand loyalty of customers create barriers to entry for new firms, especially new ones. So, when any firm is giving something unique that establishes its image in the market, will act as a sort of barriers to entry for potential rivals. While the assumption of the theory is that there is free entry and free exit based on advertisement. Under monopolistic competition, there is availability of different types and qualities of goods. And this enables the consumers to exercise their choice according to their preferences. Such advertisement reduces the search cost for buyers, even for sellers also, and it makes market to function very efficiently. So whenever advertisements play the role of providing information, so it serves both buyers as well as sellers. But firms rarely use such kind of informative advertisement. They often deceive the consumers regarding qualities of the product through manipulative, defensive, and offensive advertisements. Particularly producers of soft drink spend huge amount of money on such kind of misleading advertisements. Consumer will have to bear the cost of such advertisement campaigns, and it is a waste of financial resources. It is social waste also. And particularly competitive advertisement by rival producers also nullify the efforts. So advertisement encourages market concentration and unfair trade practices. Its abuses need to be curbed by legislation and consumer awareness. Further, existence of so many varieties of product confuse the consumers and result in irrational and illogical preferences by the consumer for inferior qualities of the product. Group boundaries. In monopolistic competition, we do not use the concept of industry because industry means where a firm or numerous firms are producing identical products. Under monopolistic competition, since differentiated products are being produced, so we use the concept of group. And boundaries of the group under this market form cannot be clearly demarcated. Chamberlain failed to define the actual number of firms necessary to justify such market form. Access capacity. It is important effect of monopolistic competition. By producing at less than optimum level, the firms use their invested resources inefficiently. Moreover, the availability of goods to the society is less than optimum. This means that resources are not fully utilized. Further, the firms fail to specialize sufficiently on account of non-price competition and frequent product variation. Under monopolistic competition, a number of inefficient firms can survive just because of consumer loyalty to the products. On account of manipulative advertisements, consumers get wrong impression that the commodities produced by these firms are pretty well. The inefficient firms incur chronic losses, charge high prices from their consumers, and waste valuable resources. A developing country like India, with limited resources, cannot afford the luxury of unutilized capacity, inefficient firms, and too many variety of the same product. Transport waste. The wasteful use of transportation is the result of product differentiation and irrational consumers' preferences. It would have been much better had a single firm serves a particular area. Comparison of monopolistic competition and perfect competition. When Chamberlain introduced the concept of monopolistic competition, he actually put thrust on the fact that here both monopoly and perfect competition coexist. That means these are not mutually exclusive. In this market form, the elements of both market forms are present. In spite of the fact that Monopolistic competition carries some of the features of perfect competition also, but there is difference between the two market forms. The first is product differentiation. Under perfect competition, all firms in the industry produce homogeneous product. That means the products are perfect substitutes to each other. As a result of which, demand curve facing a firm is perfectly elastic, shown by a horizontal line at the equilibrium market price. The corresponding total revenue curve under this market form is positively sloped, straight line starting from the origin. Average revenue curve also coincides with this horizontal demand curve, and hence marginal revenue curve also equals average revenue curve. Here the cross elasticity of demand among the products is infinite. On the other hand, the monopolistic firm, by practicing product differentiation, has some degree of monopoly power to influence the market price. Here the demand or the average revenue curve is not perfectly elastic, but it is highly elastic, downward sloping curve. Further, marginal revenue curve is also downward sloping, which is steeper than average revenue curve, and cross elasticity of demand among the product is very small. Under perfect competition, on account of perfect knowledge on the part of buyers and sellers, selling cost or advertisement cost doesn't exist. Thus, there is no non-price competition. Further, there is no transportation cost here. There is no scope for innovation and research due to identical nature of the product. But in the case of monopolistic competition, all the firms advertise their products to sustain or to remain in the business. Here, advertisement is the most important tool for non-price competition. It can also make consumers better informed about the products who have imperfect knowledge about the products. Furthermore, there are cross transportation costs under monopolistic competition. Here, the firms remain busy in new discoveries and innovations to improve the quality of the product. Concept of industry. Concept of industry applies well under perfect competition, where firms produce identical products. Every firm in the industry is just a price taker and quantity adjuster. So, under perfect competition, the firm can sell any quantity of the product at the given price determined by the market forces of demand and supply. On the contrary, under monopolistic competition, products are similar. Here, the term industry is replaced by product group, a group of firms producing differentiating products. Here, a firm under group has to take decisions on three policy variables, namely price of the product, quality of the product, and selling cost. Equilibrium. The short-term equilibrium condition for the equilibrium of the firm are same under perfect competition and monopolistic competition. That is, MR equal to MC and slope of MC should be less than slope of MR. In both the market firm, price is equal to average cost in the long run. But under perfect competition, price is also equal to marginal cost, while it is greater than marginal cost under monopolistic competition. So, higher price is charged under monopolistic competition. If we compare the equilibrium price and output, we find that equilibrium price is less under perfect competition than under monopolistic competition, as we can see from figure 15.5. Monopolist or firm under monopolistic competition charges higher price OPM, while competing firm charges OPC, which is a lower price. For the output sold under monopolistic competition is less, which is OQM, while it is greater in the case of perfect competition, that is OQC. Under perfect competition, the industry doesn't have excess capacity since every firm produces at the minimum point of long run average cost. So we can say there is best utilization of resources since price is equal to marginal cost. Under perfect competition, welfare is maximized and consumers get tremendous amount of consumer surplus. But under monopolistic competition, long run equilibrium point is to the left of minimum point on the LAC curve. This means that there is excess capacity under monopolistic competition. That means such firm produces socially suboptimal output. That is, P is more than marginal cost. Even Chamberlain defines excess capacity, which is different from the version given by John Robinson, that says that excess capacity exists under monopolistic competition on account of non-price competition. Monopoly element doesn't allow production to expand to the socially desired level, resulting in welfare loss or deadweight loss. That is similar to the case of monopoly. Consumers get little amount of consumer surplus. The unprecedented waste and misuse of resources is responsible for loss of economic welfare.